HTML Web Workers API. A web worker is a JavaScript running in the background without affecting the performance of the page. What is a web worker? When executing scripts in an HTML page, the page becomes unresponsive until the script is finished. A web worker is a JavaScript that runs in the background independently of other scripts without affecting the performance of the page. You can continue to do whatever you want, clicking, selecting things, etc., while the web worker runs in the background. And here we have the browser support. The number in the table specify the first browser version that fully supports the web workers. So here we have the API, Google Chrome, and the web workers is going to be 4.0. We have Internet Explorer Edge is going to be 10.0. We have Firefox that is going to be 3.0. Safari is going to be 4.0, and Opera is going to be 11.5. HTML web workers example. The example below creates a simple web worker that counts numbers in the background. So we have this example count. We have the count numbers, start worker, and stop worker. So if we click and try it yourself, okay, so we have this, and if we click in start worker, it's gonna start counting, and now if we click stop worker, it's gonna stop. So we're gonna check out this example. So this is the final product. We're gonna go back to this example, but first we're gonna check the web worker support. Before creating a web worker, check whether the user's browser supports it. So here we have the syntax, we have the if statement, and the parentheses we have the type of, in this case, worker. If the type of worker is not equal to undefined, then we're gonna open curly braces and we're gonna have some code. Yes, the worker support some code. Else, we're gonna have an else statement. Sorry, no web worker support. So now we're gonna have to create a web worker file. So for this example, we just need an HTML file, but we're gonna connect it to this JavaScript file. So we're gonna type the whole thing, but first I'm just gonna show you how it's gonna be. So index.html. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy the whole thing just for demonstration. We're gonna save it and I'm gonna open it. So but it's not gonna work because we don't have the JavaScript file. So I'm gonna click start worker. So nothing's happening. Why? Because we need this file. We need the demo_workers.js. So I'm gonna grab this file, and we're gonna create a new file. So new file is gonna be named demo_workers.js. So like that. And okay, again, nothing is happening since we don't have anything in that file, but we are gonna go here. This is what is gonna be in our JavaScript file. So we go here in demo_workers.js and we copy and paste this piece of code. Now if we go to our website and I refresh it, it's working. So count numbers, start workers, stop workers. So I'm gonna stop it, and you can press Ctrl+Shift+I to see what's going on. So we can go here, we can go into the application. We have, okay, so we're gonna stop worker. So now we're gonna see. So we need two things. We need the HTML file. But we also need a JavaScript file, and it's gonna be demo_workers.js. It's gonna be this one. So we have here create a web worker file. Now let's create our web worker in an external JavaScript. Here we create a script that counts. The script is stored in the demo_workers.js file, and we have it right here. And again, we have a variable declaration, we have a var statement declaration, and the variable's name is I, and we're gonna initialize it to 0. Outside of that, we're gonna have a function, and the function name is gonna be time count. So it's gonna be time count. We open a set of parentheses. Now we're gonna open curly braces, and inside of the curly braces we're gonna have the variable I, and we're gonna assign it to I plus 1, and we're gonna end up this statement with a semicolon. Outside of that we're gonna have the post message, and inside of the post message we're gonna have the variable I. And if you mouse over it, the function post message, we have the message calling any comma options, question mark calling Windows post message. You have all the stuff. We can read this theory here. Post a message to the given window. Messages can be structured objects, e.g. nested objects and arrays, can contain JavaScript values, strings, numbers, data objects, etc., and can contain certain data objects such as file blob, file list, and array buffers objects. Objects listed in the transfer member of options are transferred, not just cloned, meaning that they are no longer usable on sending side. A target origin can be specified using the target origin member of options. If not provided, comma, it defaults to the slash. This default restricts the message to the same origin targets only. If the origin of the target window doesn't match the given target origin, the message is discarded to avoid information leakage. To send the message to the target regardless of the origin, set the target origin to asterisk. Throws a data clone error, dumb exception if transfer array contains duplicate objects or if the message could not be cloned. So that is that. And in line 6 we're gonna have the set timeout. We open parentheses and we open curly braces. We're gonna have the name of the function that is gonna be time count. So we're gonna have it here, comma, and we're gonna have 500 milliseconds. That is gonna be half of a second. If you wanna, I don't know, put it maybe 1 second, it will be 1000 milliseconds, and we can save it. And here we have the time count. And for example, if we go, I don't know, slower, and we put 3000 milliseconds, so when we go to our website, so I'm gonna open it, I'm gonna press Alt plus L plus O, I'm gonna start worker. It's gonna start slower now, every 3000 milliseconds. As you can see, it's gonna wait for 3 seconds to keep counting. So we're gonna stop the worker, and we're gonna go back to the demo underscore worker, and just we're gonna leave it to half a second or 500 milliseconds. So that is that for the function time count. We're gonna close the curly braces, and outside of that we're gonna call in the function time count, and we do that with the name time count and then parentheses, and we end up with a semicolon. So that is that for this example here. This is important because without the JavaScript, without the external JavaScript file, this website is not gonna work. So we need the JavaScript file. So now we're gonna move to the important part of the code above, is the post message. So they're talking about this one, the post message, open parentheses, and inside of that we're gonna pass in the variable, the post message method, which is used to post a message back to the HTML page. Note, normally web workers are not used for such simple scripts, but for more CPU intensive tasks. So now we're gonna create a web worker object, and we do that now that we have the web worker file. Okay, so we have the web worker file. We are gonna, okay, here we're gonna create a web worker object, and they're talking about this if statement here. So they're talking about, okay, this part from line 16 to 18 if you're following along. So here we have, now that we have the web worker file, we need to call it from an HTML page. The following lines checks if the worker already exists. If not, it creates a new web worker object and runs the code in the demo workers.js. So here we have the if statement. In the if statement, inside of the parentheses, we're gonna have type of W. If the type of W is equal to undefined, then we're gonna do something. So, and that something is gonna be, the W is gonna be assigned to the new worker, and inside of the parentheses we're gonna put the demo underscore workers.js. And again, we are focusing only on the HTML part. So this is JavaScript, so but we're focusing on the HTML part. And from line 16 to 18 we have the if statement type of W is equal to undefined. Then we're gonna do something. That something is gonna be the W is gonna be assigned to the new worker. Inside of the parentheses we're gonna have the name of this file, of the JavaScript file, that is gonna be demo underscore workers.js. So that is that. Then we can send and receive messages from the web worker and add on a message event listener to the web worker. So we have the w.onMessage. We have this one from lines 19 to 21. We have the w.onMessage that is going to be assigned to the function. Inside of the parentheses we're going to have the event, we're going to open curly braces, and we're going to have the document.getElement by ID, and the ID is going to be result, and we're going to chain it to the inner HTML, and we're going to assign it to the event, chain it to the data. We end up with a semicolon, and then we're going to close curly braces, and that's exactly what we're doing here from lines 19 to 21. So we have the w chain it to the message, we're going to assign it to the function event, document.getElement by ID, and the ID is going to be result. And we're doing a step by step. But for example, if you wonder where the W comes, the W is a var statement. We have the var statement declaration named W. This is a variable, and the ID is here. The ID is going to be result, but we're following along. When the web worker posts a message, the code within the event listener is executed. The data from the web worker is stored in event.data. So it's going to be here, it's going to be stored in the event.data. Now, terminate a web worker. When a web worker object is created, it will continue to listen for messages, open parentheses, even after the external script is finished until it's terminated. To terminate a web worker in free browser computer resources, use the terminate method. And let me see if they're using it here. No, they're okay. See, they're using it here, and for a stop worker. So from lines 27 to 30 we have the function, and the function name is stop worker. We're gonna open curly braces, and we're gonna have the variable w, and we're gonna chain it to terminate. So we have the w terminate, and outside of that we're gonna have the variable w, and it's gonna be assigned to undefined. So that is that. And we're gonna have here the reuse the web worker. If you set the worker variable to undefined after it has been terminated, you can reuse the code. Okay, so we reuse it by setting the variables. We're setting it to undefined. Now here we have the full web worker example, and it's pretty much this full web worker example is pretty much the same as this one. So we're gonna go here. We already seen the worker code in that JS file. Below is the code for the HTML page. So that's pretty much the thing that we have seen it. And here we have web workers in the DOM. Since the web workers are in external files, they do not have access to the following JavaScript objects. They don't have access to the window object, to the document object, and to the parent object. So keep that in mind. And now we're gonna see this example, and if you click it and try yourself, it's gonna be the same. So you have the start worker and the stop worker. So we click it, 1 2 3, okay, and we can stop it. So I already copied and pasted here, so let's just go over. I can delete it and type it again, but let's just go over it. So here we have an HTML file and a JavaScript file. So inside of the body section of the HTML file, we're gonna have a paragraph, and inside of the paragraph we're gonna have the count number. So it's gonna be this one. Let me see, we're gonna close here those two. We're gonna have the count numbers. It's gonna be this one, the paragraph. Okay, so in the same inside of the paragraph we're gonna have the output element with the ID attribute result. So, and again, the output element represents the result of a calculation performed by the application or the result of a user action. and we have the ID attribute is going to be result. So keep that in mind, this ID attribute, because we are going to be using it a lot, the result ID. So we're going to end the output tag and we're going to close the paragraph tag. In line 6 we're going to have a button element with an unclick event. So unclick event, a pointing device button has been pressed and released on an element, and we're going to assign it to a function, and the name of the function is going to be a star worker. We close the angle brackets and we're going to have a star worker, and we're going to close the button tag, and that is the button we have here, a star worker. Then in line 7 we're going to have another button element with an unclick event and equal sign double quotes. Inside of the double quotes we're going to have the function, and the function name is going to be a stop worker. We close the angle brackets and the context is going to be a stop worker. So this is going to be the name of the button, and we're going to close the button tag. So we're going to have two buttons, a start worker and a stop worker, like that. And then they give us a paragraph with a strong element, node, column. Internet Explorer 9 and earlier versions do not support web workers, so keep that in mind. I'm using Google Chrome. We're gonna close the paragraph tag, and now it comes the JavaScript file. So it's gonna be from lines from lines 11 to 31. So this is all the code that we have here. Inside of the script element we are gonna have the variable statement declaration. So we're gonna have a variable named w or w. We are not gonna initialize it, we're just gonna end it up with a semicolon. In line 14 we're gonna have two functions, and the functions are a start worker and a stop worker. So in line 14 we have the first function, and in line 27 is gonna be the second function. So the first function is gonna be named start worker, and inside of that, so start worker, we have a set of parentheses, and then we're gonna open a set of curly braces. Inside of the curly braces we're gonna have an if statement declaration, if else. So we have the if statement declaration. If we open parentheses, if something happens we're gonna do something, and this is gonna be the something. Else, this is the else statement declaration, else we're gonna do this. So if we're gonna be in line 15 now, if the type of worker, if the type of worker is not equal to undefined, and undefined has to be in double quotes, we're gonna do something, and that something is we're gonna open a new if statement. So it's gonna be the if type of w, this w, the variable that we created in line 12, is equal to undefined. We're gonna do something, and that something is gonna be that the variable w is gonna be assigned to the new worker. We open parentheses, and now we're gonna have the JavaScript file, this JavaScript file that we created here. And again, we went over this. So we have a variable statement declaration named I, and we're gonna initialize it to 0. We're gonna have a function named time count, and inside of that we're gonna open curly braces. We're gonna have the variable I assigned to I plus 1. We're gonna have the post message that we already went over this theory. Inside of that we're gonna pass in the variable I, semicolon, and then we're gonna have the set time out. Inside of the parentheses we're gonna pass in the function timeout count, or time count, comma, and then the time in this case is half a second or 500 milliseconds. We close the curly braces of the function time count, and we're gonna call that function with time count and parentheses. So that is that. We close the curly braces of the if statement of line 16, and now we're gonna have the variable w chained to the message in line 19. We're gonna assign it to the function. Inside of the parentheses we're gonna have the event parameter. We're gonna open curly braces, and we're gonna document that get element by ID. Inside of the parentheses we're gonna pass in the ID, and the ID we grab it from line 5. The ID is gonna be result. We're gonna chain it to the inner HTML. We're gonna assign it to event data. We're gonna assign it to event data. This is important. We end up with a semicolon. We close the curly braces of the function with parameter event. We close the curly braces of the if statement of line 15, and now we're gonna have the else statement. So if else, then document that get element by ID. We grab the ID result, we chain it to inner HTML. Sorry, your browser does not support the web worker, so that is that. we close the curly braces of the else statement, and we close the finally we close the curly braces of the function start worker. So that is that for the first function. And now we can start counting, but now we need to stop it, because if not, it's just gonna be start counting until infinity. So in line 27 we are gonna have a second function name, you guessed it, stop worker. So we open curly braces, and now we're gonna use this variable, the variable w. We're gonna chain it to terminate. We put parentheses, we ended up with a semicolon, and now we're gonna have to reuse it. The w is gonna be assigned to undefined. We ended up with a semicolon, and we close the curly braces of the function stop worker. And this is pretty much the whole code we went over, and this is our website. So you can start the worker, and start, as you can see, is counting. We can stop the worker, so it starts at 13 in this case. Let me see something. Okay, application, let me see in the local storage. Okay, so we have the session 2. Okay, so that is fine. We have the service workers. Okay, and we can refresh it and start from 0. And okay, so it started counting again, and we can stop the worker. And if you want to change the time, you have to go to your JavaScript file, and let's say instead of half a second, instead of 500 milliseconds, you want 5,000 milliseconds. So it's going to be really slow. So let's see what happens. We can start start worker. So 1 is going to take 5,000 milliseconds to go to number 2, and then 5,000 milliseconds to go to number 3. So it's gonna take so you can modify the time. And that's pretty much it for this video. We can stop the worker, and that's pretty much it for this video.